Hello. This is a terrible one. All right. That was just the test one.
Okay.
Okay. Welcome back, y'all, to another episode of Talking About It. Today's episode is about courage, leadership, mental health, and stepping into something bigger than yourself. My guest today, I'm excited to have, is Frances Maldonado. She is a candidate for judge of County Court at Law Number 2. And we're going to be talking about community, transparency, resilience, and why local elections matter more than most people realize. So sit back and let's get into it. Good morning, Frances. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're super busy. I know you're going to go canvassing right now just to continue spreading the word. So I appreciate you taking this time with me today so that we can give our listeners some information on the election, the importance of or even what a runoff is. Maybe some people might not even know that, but basically just, having a conversation and letting people get to know you and your background a little bit. Um, so if you would just give us a quick little background intro on you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Frances Maldonado, and I am a candidate for judge of County Court of Law Number 2. This is a local court here in El Paso, and it's a misdemeanor criminal court. And I am an attorney here in El Paso. I've been in practice for over 10 years. I've practiced I started my legal practice at the district attorney's office as a prosecutor, and I was there for about 6 years. And then I've also worked as an assistant city attorney for the city of El Paso, doing budgets, working for the budget department, economic development, and utilities department. And in the utilities department, a lot of people don't really hear about that, but what it does is civil litigation. So whenever the electric company, Paso Electric or Texas Gas, wants to increase our rates as consumers, the city steps in to fight them on this and try to bring it down and try to keep our rates at a fair amount. So I was one of the lawyers that was involved in the litigation back in 2021, I think it was. Yeah, when they were raising our rates, when they filed a rate case at that time. So I've served our community in that and those two positions. I'm in private practice, so I'm doing my criminal defense in my own firm, and also civil litigation as far as personal injury defense and a few other things, other cases that come up. And I've also worked in personal injury. I was at a large law firm here in town, and I did personal injury defense there, so that's kind of where I got the experience doing that. And I'm born and raised in El Paso. I grew up on the east side. I went to Montwood High School. I went to UTEP. And then after UTEP, I left El Paso for a little bit. I decided to move to New York City, which was crazy. So I moved to New York City and took the first job that came along, which was a receptionist at Limited Brands. And I wanted to get life experience and work experience, and that's why I went there. Um, and I started working at Limited Brands and realized that the fashion industry really wasn't for me. So I got a job at Citigroup Private Bank, and I was doing like regulatory stuff and working in the area that handles nonprofit organizations. So I was there I was in New York for about 5 years, and then realized that I just did not like the New York winters.
Yeah.
So I decided it was time for a change of pace and moved to San Diego.
Nice.
And that's where I ended up going to law school, was at San Diego to Thomas Jefferson School of Law. And then once it was finished law school, it was time to practice. I came back home. My family's here. And so this was the place I wanted to come back to. So now, I'm in private practice. Other than running a campaign and my own practice, I'm a mom. I have a little girl that's 5 years old, and My husband is also an attorney here in El Paso. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So you've been all over, like, just, following, like, learning, like you said, like, life experience, and I think that's very admirable because a lot of times, especially, what I find here in El Paso is that people don't like to leave. Either people, like, don't like to leave because you do have the family, you do have the connection here, or they can't wait to leave. So I think, like, it's either one of those 2. I grew up back and forth between here and Phoenix
Mhm.
because my parents were divorced from when I was a kid. So, like, I left and I was able to kinda get different perspective, and I think that, you going to New York, like you said, to get life experience and to kind of just, see what's out there just is exciting, especially
Yeah.
New York, and I lived in San Diego when my husband was stationed out there for a couple years, and so
Oh,
it
nice.
was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. I could not drive out there. It
I know.
we complain about, like, driving here, and
Yeah.
it's bad here, but I think over there, like, just the freeways, man, it was
Yeah.
like yeah, it was the driving was crazy. So, like, we stayed in Point Loma and
Oh,
literally,
nice.
like, we just stayed in the military housing and, like, 5 blocks maybe around there. Like, I didn't like to go.
I love that area. I would stay there too. That's a
Yeah,
beautiful area.
they had everything there, at the in the area where we lived. It was, like, newer housing, so there was a Wiener Schnitzel across the street from us. So, like, we had everything in that area, so, like, I was perfectly content just staying in that little bubble. See, I've always been the one who just likes to be in that little bubble. Like, when I
Yeah.
find my comfort.
Yeah.
You said, your parents were immigrants, they came over here. How did that shape your values and your work ethic and your drive for wanting to get out and see the world and, like, get life experience?
Well, my parents my dad was a lawyer in Juarez, and, when he came to the US, he couldn't practice here because he wasn't licensed, and so he started his own business, and he opened a tamale shop on the west side, and it was Grandma's Tamales that he owned, and then my mom, worked at the community college, and so, we I grew up with parents who were just hardworking, and my grandparents really took care of us. So whenever my parents were working, they stepped in to help pick us up from school, take care of us after school, and so that really just shaped who I am because family is very important to me. Um, and also just working hard. I grew up with a family that just believed in having a strong work ethic and serving our community. My grandpa was, he had a farm over there in San Elizario, and so I grew up when I was little just spending time over there summers and, helping him and my grandma, pull weeds or with the crops, and they had animals at one point, and so helping them with the chickens and everything. So, that's just kind of what instilled in me the hard work ethic and, just humility, I think.
Yeah, and the grit and, like, you're willing to dig in and get into whatever it needs whatever needs to be done, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's a very admirable quality, especially for someone in your position and for, for, like, your candidacy, right? Because we look for candidates who can relate to us, especially right now in the current climate of politics nationally. We're seeing that there's just such a huge disconnect from the top down. And, so I think you just, having that work ethic and all of that, is just fantastic and refreshing, to hear.
So you mentioned like how that helped me with moving to New York and getting there and everything. I think I had that strong work ethic. And being in New York, I think that just like my God, it just elevated it, I guess, because New York is so it's very competitive. I mean, you have so many people and so many smart people who are really just focused on working and moving up the career ladder. And so that also just helped shape my work ethic is I think that's why now I can just dig in and just like jump in and whatever I have to do, I get the work done because I feel like that really, shaped who I am as well.
Yeah, I can just imagine, I watch I like have like a reality show obsession.
Yeah,
I think it's because of me like growing up in the time where like reality shows were like barely coming out. So like the real world
the real world.
was like
Yeah,
something I watched
yeah,
like when MTV had like a lot of them were from New York and you would see I mean, even like the New York housewives, you know what I mean? Like just the
yeah,
way that people go at each other is
yeah.
just I you gotta have that grit and toughness and,
Mhm.
so yeah, I think that's an excellent trait to have. For me, fighting was survival mode. I've been in survival mode my whole entire life, so
Yeah.
I know the fight, I know the grit, I know all of that stuff, and I don't know if people realize that when you're able to focus that into a purpose or you're able to hone in on it and it makes you laser focus. It makes you a problem solver. It makes you somebody who you can't bullshit because we can see it coming a mile away or you know what I mean? And so I think just again as a candidate, it's important because you can filter through a lot of the things, get the facts and just problem solve and just get in there and say like how can I fix this and what do we need to do like to take action and that's kind of where my whole thing has been kind of going now is towards action. What made you want to run for being how do you say it for judgeship
For a bench.
for a bench? Is that how you say it? Yeah, I'm gonna make up words left and right.
Yeah, it
So
is kind
what
of it
made
is a
you
judgeship or judicial position. That's
okay.
another way of saying it, yeah.
So what made you want to run? You know, I did mention community service was something that you learned from your grandparents and your parents. So what does community service mean to you personally, and what made you decide to run at this time?
So, community service is very important to me because I've served as a prosecutor, and I think that really shaped my view of public service and really made it something that's important to me because I've litigated cases. I've been in almost every courtroom in the courthouse, so I've handled a lot of misdemeanor cases, felony cases. I've specialized in family violence cases. And so as a prosecutor, I served as a voice for victims in the cases, right, in the courtroom and helped them navigate the justice system. Whenever we had a case, when we were preparing for trial, even before trial, just explaining the process to them so that they understand what was happening and what to expect because the legal process can be very like stressful for someone who's not familiar with it. And so that that just became very important to me is to help people and to help victims and to serve our community by trying to make it safer as a prosecutor. Um and then, then I jumped into the defense as a defense attorney, and I saw the other side. And I helped, when I started my practice, I started taking appointments from the county court, which means whenever people don't have money for an attorney, they're appointed an attorney. And that can either be the public defender or it can be someone in private practice who accepts appointments. And so I started doing that and I really got to see the other side of like the criminal justice system. And I'm glad that I did because I got to, you know, I, it was very eye opening. And I saw that, that people make mistakes and sometimes they're going through the worst time of their life and, they have this case. So seeing that as far as helping people, that's what really drives my belief in the public service.
Yeah.
And then I decided to run because, I've been in many of the courtrooms in our community in the courthouse, and I've seen how important the judicial positions are, how important it is to have experienced judges on the bench. And, I'm running to serve, but I'm also running because the judge of this court is retiring. And we have really good judges that are retiring, just like Judge Julie Gonzalez in this bench. And so, I wanted to step up and use the experience that I have to serve on the bench to make sure that, the court has someone there that's experienced, that's there for the right reasons. I'm there to serve the community. I'm not there for any um I'm not there for a pension or anything like that. I'm there to serve, and that's my primary purpose is to make sure this court keeps running efficiently so that people get their day in court, so that victims are heard, right? And that the court keeps running efficiently, because when the courts slow down, when there's backlogs, that costs us money as taxpayers. And so that's important, for me as an attorney, to make sure that this court keeps running efficiently.
Yeah, that I think that's one thing I think that even if people don't have any idea what's going on in the local courts or anything like that, they understand backlog and they understand what happens with that as far as cases taking longer to get processed and things like that. So I think that it's important that people hear that from you, that no, you're trying to get in there so that you can be efficient, so that you can make sure that cases are being tried in a timely manner. And I think that that's what we need. I well, for people who may not know, because it's something still that I'm learning, because we in El Paso, we have city council, we have commissioners court, like we have so many different branches that I don't even think people know. But specifically with the
The bench.
bench, specifically with the bench and the seat that you're running for, what are cases that you will be presiding over, and what types of cases?
So it handles misdemeanor criminal cases. So that means the drunk driving while intoxicated cases, the assault family violence cases, burglaries, if anybody's ever had their car burglarized, or theft, violation of protective orders. It handles harassment cases, just a variety of like the class A and class B misdemeanor cases is what it handles.
Okay.
And then in the new term, the case will also be taking on a justice of the peace appeals docket. So um, whenever someone isn't happy with the decision of the justice of the peace court, they can appeal it to a higher court, and that would be one of the county courts that it would fall under. So this court would take on that docket.
Okay. And justice of the peace would I think maybe justice of the peace might be something that more people might come into contact with. Is that more so like evictions, or correct me if I'm wrong, like evictions, is debt stuff under there, probate stuff?
No, not probate. It would be evictions, small claims,
Small claims, okay.
moving violations, right? Like tickets.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
So those cases are more so something that, since not everybody goes to court, typically will go to court or have cases in your, or not in, we're manifesting and we're putting it
yes.
out there. But in court, in court number 2, court law, how do you use
I
well, one
usually
thing,
call it CC2 because it's
CC2,
shorter, and
okay.
it's kind of like when as attorneys and everything, when we practice in the courts, we call them CC2,
Okay.
CC. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and, like, I feel like that's the hardest part of the legal matters, right? And things like that is the verbiage of it, the language, it's, like, literally a whole new language. I watch the city council meetings and they're doing the proclamation, and it's like, "Whereas to for," or "Whereas," and I'm can we, like, I don't understand, you know? Y'all know already that, if you're regular listeners, that I struggle with words all the time anyway. So, like, having to, like, say these words, bear with your girl, because I'm trying here, but it's like I feel like I've been seeing people post on there, and this goes for everything with, like, AI. Like, I see therapists posting people getting therapy through Chat GPT or whatever it
Wow.
is. Yeah, it's like a whole thing. I didn't know about it, and I don't recommend it, y'all. It's just
That
like,
brings
don't
up
Google
some
your
privacy
symptoms.
issues there.
Right? Yeah, so this, like, it's weird. I went, like, on a rabbit hole on it. But I see also some attorneys here locally that will post memes and stories about people, like, using Chat GPT or, like, AI for court things, and then they think, like, they're a whole attorney, which is why I think, like, just I think that's why people nowadays just feel like they know everything and they know nothing. So yeah, I think you guys having the training and going through the schooling, like you're literally learning a whole different way of speaking.
Yeah.
So I don't even remember what my question was going to be about that court CC2. Well, if I remember, I'll come back to it because I don't remember what I was talking about. But yeah, like the lingo, the being right for the seat, the education, all of that I think is just super important.
And the experience, I think, because I think, we as attorneys, we can practice law and, you know, but having the experience of um, being in the courtroom, doing jury trials, right? Presenting cases to juries. Um, and one of the things I think is really important or different about me is that I was actually one of the prosecutors in that court. So I know how that court works. That was the first court that I was assigned to as a new prosecutor. So I started at the district attorney's office. I was assigned to county court 2, which means that I was the prosecutor that handled every case that came through that court.
Okay.
So I was there every day handling the whole docket and really looking at every case that came through. And so that's really good experience because I'm familiar with a lot of the types of cases that the court
Yeah.
handles. I've done the trials, right? I've presented cases to juries and just the experience as far as having broad experience, and
Yeah.
in different areas of law and also with the criminal defense. So I think that that's something that's unique about me.
Yeah, your experience to me just doing research on the candidates that I have to vote on because our runoffs or our election starts May 18th for early voting, and then
Yes.
election day is May 26th. So for me, I'm a big advocate on local elections, the importance of it, getting people out to vote, but not only to go vote for people's signs that you see on the streets or who has the biggest signs or who has the biggest marketing money,
Yes.
but it's to actually do work and find out about the candidates that are running because we see on FitFam all the time complaints about our our judges or whoever's in office, our council members, and people are pissed off about it. And it's like, dude, El Paso's voting record is garbage. Maybe 3% to 7% of the population are voting for what all of you El Pasoans are dealing with, right? So I think 14% was this past election that we had, and I think that was like the highest
Was the
voting
highest.
that I think it was the highest voting that
Yeah.
we've had. So, when you guys are complaining, and by you guys I mean the public who likes to complain but not take action, it's very important that you do homework on each candidate. And so when I was doing the research on you, Francis, I was just so impressed by the experience. So many times we see people running who have zero experience in being a city council leader, being whatever their position is, right? They are maybe an entrepreneur that goes on to do that. But to have somebody who has the experience, who has seen both sides, worked on both sides as far as prosecution, defense, you've seen the array of cases specifically in the court that you're running for. That's like, that's what we need. It's like, one example I'll use is Manny Rodriguez. He went to schools in SISD. Jaime Velasquez, the superintendent for SISD. But I completely am spacing right now.
We'll say
But
hi,
like
maybe.
yeah, but he was, I believe, one of Manny's teachers.
Oh, wow.
And so to see him now that he's on the school board, like he knows what SISD is about. He's been through school. He's done, that thing. And I think that that type of experience, when you know something so well already, you may have an idea even before you decided to run on what maybe could be changed as far as what can I do to expedite something a little bit better. You know what I mean? Like you already have an idea of how you can make it better? We have a good judge right there now that is about to retire. Like, how can I improve on it? And I think that that's so very important. And I think that separates you from your opponent because you do have that experience. And I think that it's so important, y'all, to do the research on your own. I will never tell you who to vote for or anything like that. I will just tell you who I am in support of and the reasons why, and encourage you to look up the candidates for the seats and make your own decision, right? And so for this race specifically, it's for CC2.
Yeah.
See what I did? I got it so much
Yeah.
easier. For CC2 bench, we have Frances Maldonado and I was gonna put versus. Y'all know I'm a fight fan, so but not versus. And her opponent is Cristina Montes. So if you're looking to see who you need to go research for the specific seat in El Paso, Texas, it's Frances Maldonado and Cristina Montes. And I will also have some articles linked up on the website as well as on Instagram, so you guys can go check out some of the information that we have. But let me ask you,
Yeah. Can I just add to that?
yeah, go ahead.
So you bring up really important points as far as, and I appreciate you doing this because, you're not taking a position, you're just getting the information out there. And that's really what we need is just to get the information out there to people so that when they go to vote, they have the information on the people that are on the ballot. And they've also, one of the things I've really tried to do is really engage with people in the community, go door to door canvassing, go to events, meeting people, any way that I can, right? So that they get to know who I am and I'm not just a name and I'm not just a photo, I'm not just talking points, like they know the person that I am. And we're all good judges of character. And so we can all meet people and we'll know I like them or I don't like them, they're authentic, they're not. And so that's why I've really prioritized meeting people, engaging with people, and it's about just getting them the information so that they know who the people are on the ballot. But also with the runoff election, those are usually very low, like, turnout.
Mhm.
And, we had a really good turnout in the primary. And I want to try to make sure that we get people out there in the runoff election because it's so important. We don't have a lot of courts or a lot of people on the ballot for the runoff. And so I want to get people motivated to come out and vote for the seats that are left because they are very important to our community and make sure that people have information. I have my website, I have my social media. I'm out there in the community. I'm always happy to talk to people, and I think that that's what we should be doing as candidates is talking to people and meeting people so that they know who we are, know where we come from, know why we're doing this, and that we can gain their trust. And that's why, because ultimately they're trusting us with their vote, and it's on us to get them the information
Yes.
before they go out to vote.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's what I feel like is lacking a lot of times is that you have people from one side telling you the talking points of one side, and then you have the talking points of another side telling you the talking points of your other side. And based on whatever your algorithm is, you're only going to be getting that side to it. And so here on talking about it and what I'm about is putting out the information. And I've been with Jesse Ventura, Jesse the Body Ventura. If
Oh,
you all
wow.
don't know, he was a wrestler. He was a senator or a mayor. But anyway, he used to bring about a really good point, and it was something that I was like, "Yes, we need that." But he believed that we need to take the party off of, the ballots, and, you actually have to work to find out the candidate and what you're voting on, and so that's something that I've always kind of, like, felt like we need to do. So here I like to just make sure that we're getting the information out and letting people make their decisions, right? And that's all we can do is educate. I think that we just have a lack of education and a lack of interest because we again don't realize how important these local elections are until you talked a little bit about utility spikes, and we're dealing with that right now.
Yes.
We have an issue with like DWIs. We have like an issue with all of these things, but people are like, Well, it's the judge. Well, you know what? You voted these people in. It's the DA. Well, you voted him. You just recently voted him in. So stuck with him till like 2029, I think, or something. So like we need to make sure that we're doing a better job of getting informed on the elections and really honing in on our local elections, because presidential elections are when people get the most turnout, but the impact that you feel immediately is in your local politics, in your local elections. And you
Yes.
can say all you want, you're not political, I don't like politics, I don't care for politics. But if you care about people who are deciding on cases, if you care about utility hikes, tax hikes, that's all stuff that's done locally. And at this point in El Paso specifically, we have a very small percentage of people who turn out to vote that are making these big decisions for you. So make sure that you take accountability, put your reading glasses on, and like do the homework.
Yes.
So let me go ahead.
And I want to say that, if I can, I've heard a lot from people, not just young people, but older people too. I've heard from families that say that, well, what's my vote going to do? Is it going to change anything? And it will. Every vote counts, and every vote makes a difference. And so, if there's anything, I want to make sure people take away is that your vote can make a difference. It will count, and so especially here locally, right?
Yeah.
So.
With that small amount of people voting, every vote counts. Like it's crazy. Like I was looking through the county website and I was looking at some of these seats and the amount of votes that made it go to a runoff, and I'm like,
Mhm.
this it's not a lot. So
Yeah.
every vote literally is going to count in this runoff. And so let me ask you, Francis, what do you wish more voters understood before election day?
As far as my race, or
As
about
far
me,
as your race, yes, ma'am.
just about the experience, experience matters, public service matters, that I'm here to serve our community, and that's why I've jumped into this, and that I am here for the community, for the people. I know that I have to earn the community's trust and their vote and keep that trust. And that's something that I have been working to do as far as earning the trust. And that's something that I will do, ultimately when I'm at the bench.
Yes.
So I will keep people's trust because that's what keeps us there, right? Keeps us serving the community
Yes.
and maintaining that trust. So I will continue to work for that.
Yes. I love it. So we touched a little bit on the elections, your experience, and this is a mental health podcast. So I want to
Mhm.
touch a little bit on the mental health before I let you go here. But just as from your perspective as an attorney, how often do you see mental health struggles connected to cases that come through some of the courts?
I see that a lot. I see it a lot. We see it a lot with the driving while intoxicated cases. Sometimes there's mental health issues that are, that's why people are drinking a lot. We see it with family violence cases as well. And so I've seen it as a prosecutor and I've seen it as a defense attorney where this comes in, mental health. So it's a very important thing for me as an attorney to keep in mind and for judges to keep in mind as well, because no person is the same, right? And some people maybe need a little bit more help than others. And it's important for us to address whatever issues are there or whatever mental health concerns are there. Because ultimately, what we want is to make sure that people get the help that they.
Yes, for sure. And again, this is just for everybody because I've been saying it, especially since I spoke to the Sober Streets movement, and I talk about accountability on all occasions. And in no way do I specifically, and I don't think Miss Maldonado either, says that mental health is an excuse for any of the behaviors or any of the crimes that are committed. I think that accountability definitely needs to be enforced. At the same time, I also believe that intervention and focusing on mental health needs to have a priority. So let me ask, do you believe the court system needs stronger mental health intervention resources available before situations can escalate into crime or tragedy. So like before it gets to like crisis mode, do you believe the court needs stronger mental health intervention resources specifically?
I think the courts have a lot of mental health resources now. And really it's on the people to take advantage of that,
Okay.
right? For them to take on those resources. There's a mental health court now. There is a DWI court, right? That focuses on issues with alcohol and what's driving people to drink to excess. And so there are a lot of resources there. I think that, we can always improve. I think there's always room for improvement or to do more. And, I think that having the information on what can be done differently or better, I think that's important. That's helpful. But yeah, no, these programs are very important and very necessary. And, a lot of times when they get to the court, something's already happened, right? There's already a case pending, but these resources can be helpful as far as preventing it from getting worse,
Right.
where someone doesn't pick up another case or it doesn't escalate, like you said. So yeah, the resources do come in with that.
Yeah, and I think too a lot of it, and I'm a big advocate for of course resources and things like that, but it also comes down to people being ready, right? People being ready to accept the help. Like, are you doing these DWI cases just because it's mandatory? And are you actually going to be able to have the capacity to take it in and actually make the changes that are needed? And so I think just in general we need to recognize mental health more seriously and see that, yeah, people alcohol was my coping mechanism. That's what I went to. And I didn't drink every day. I drank once a week, but like I drank enough for a month. So like I totally understand that we need help as far as getting people to realize, that they need help and that, like breaking the stigma, normalizing the conversations on mental health and being able to ask for help, because I'm glad that you mentioned there are resources through the courts because I didn't know anything about it. And of course, if I'm not going through the court systems, I probably wouldn't know. But maybe we can change that and let people know that there are resources so that, maybe that's something that can help with that. Yeah, so thank you for answering those questions because I do think that mental health is important. In the questionnaire you did talk about learning to like trust yourself and
Mhm.
stop over analyzing and take the leap to run.
Yes.
What helped you to take that leap? I can't imagine that it's an easy thing to do, especially being a mom, a wife, a business owner, and then also taking on to serve the community. What was it that helped you take that leap?
I think everything just kind of aligned for me. Is that I saw that I just felt ready. I think I just felt ready. I had been working for several years, gaining experience, and I felt comfortable at this point with the experience that I had to jump into it. Um, I saw that there were good judges retiring, and I think that's where kind of made me, realize, it's time. It's time to do it now. I've been thinking about it for a long time, but in seeing some of the judges that were retiring, I thought, okay, this is the time to jump in and to do it. And stop overthinking it. Stop overthinking about, well, how much is it going to cost or how much time or what's, everything. Stop overanalyzing because I tend to do that a lot. Overthink things and overanalyze it, and that just keeps me from doing stuff. And so finally, I just had to make the decision is just to do it. This was the time. The judge was retiring. She's a good judge. She has a really good court. It's probably one of the best running courts in the county court system. And it was just the time for me to run, time for me to jump
Yeah.
in.
I love it. And I think you're right. Like we let the over analyzing and the wheels spinning in our brain keep
Yeah.
us stuck. And that goes on the healing side as well. You get so comfortable. Originally being comfortable being uncomfortable was like my jam. Like living in survival mode, I knew nothing else. Starting the work, doing the journey and like starting to heal, freaked out anytime I didn't feel nervous. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
So like we get stuck in that complacency, or we get stuck in that overthinking aspect where we freeze and then we're just kind of like, I don't know. So like the action is what's important. And so I'm so happy that you decided to take the leap
Yeah. And
and
actually my husband, sorry, my
no, no,
husband
you're
actually
fine. Go ahead.
helps with it because, I guess I'd been thinking about it for a while and he's very supportive and, he was, you know, something he was also thinking that I would be good at doing.
Yeah.
So he was really pushing me to do that because it was a way for me to make a bigger impact. But it was, I have a little one, she's 5 years old. She's my only girl, so my only child, my only daughter, my everything, and so it was hard to kind of take that leap because that's time away from her and my husband, but I did it because it's important, and so that's why you touched on that too, with family and everything and
Yeah.
business. It was just one of those things where I had to just stop overthinking all these, things that could have kept me from running and just do it.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned your husband and the family support, because a lot of times I don't know if it's just I think it's both. I think men and women kind of go through the same thing, but even with the support that you have, that support system, there's still self-doubt. There's still like, as a mom, I'm going to be missing out on time with my daughter. How is that going to help? You know what I mean? So like
Yeah,
we're still all those things, and then to have that support system, it helps. It does help, but until you're ready to take the leap and until you find it in yourself
yeah,
to take the leap and run for a bench or run for like
yeah,
representative, whatever it is, like if you're waiting for the perfect time to start taking the first steps to heal, whatever it is, we having that support system doesn't make a difference. And not in a bad way, but like until you find it within yourself, until you trust yourself enough to say like, okay, and having that support system there with you, I think, I don't know, I think the way I said it just sounded kind of messed up. But like I didn't mean for it to sound messed up, but what I'm saying is you can have all the support in the world and it still only comes within yourself. And the same thing, if you feel like you're alone and you don't have anybody around, and if you think that having a huge support system around is gonna like help, trust me, until you have it within yourself, that's when the change really will be able to start to happen. And so I just wanted to tie the candidacy running and everything, because I think that it goes across the board, right?
yeah, yeah. A lot of times people don't see like they see the campaign, the candidacy and everything, but there's a lot that goes behind that. Or, there's behind the scenes and there's a lot that goes on, um, outside of like the public's view, and it's the
Yeah.
support system, it's the family, and it's, everything. So
Yeah, I think that it's so important, and yeah, I'm just so excited and grateful that you decided that we were able to make this happen and that you were able to come
me
on,
too.
because you know, I can do all the research in the world as far as, looking you up on all the articles
Hmm.
and stalking you on social media a little bit. I mean, we can do all of those things, but until we have a conversation with somebody, you really don't
Hmm.
know who that person is, what they're about. And so that's why I, want to encourage you, people, is have conversations with people. You ask the questions, reach out, because the more that we can do that, the more that we see that we have things in common, that we really do care for the greater good of the people. And, we get to see our candidates not in a forum, not in a prepared question panel. Those things are fantastic because they get to the point, but we get to see in formats like this who a candidate is. And so I thank you so much, Francis, for coming on today and just letting people in and getting to know you a little bit. Yeah, I think
Thank you
this
for
is good.
having me. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you, opening this up to me to let me reach out to people, a different way of reaching out, right? Because I can only reach so many doors, canvassing. So this is just a great way for people to really see who I am.
Yeah. And so we've done a little bit of the heavy stuff. I'm going to take a book out of the Theos at the Buzz podcast book, and I want people to kind of just get some of the fun side of you.
Okay.
So just a couple of random questions. Favorite movie or comfort show?
A comfort show, actually, it's kind of funny. I really like The Real Housewives. I really like the
Girl.
franchise. I do. That's my comfort show. Like even now, where I haven't really had time to watch TV or shows very much, that's one of my the things that I watch whenever I have time. Favorite movie? I mean, I have a lot of favorite movies, but right now, because Devil Wears Prada just came out with the second one, I'm like super excited to go watch it. So once the campaign ends, I am going to the movies and I'm gonna go watch it. So very
Yes.
excited about that because
I
it
love
actually takes
it.
me back to my New York days because I get to see, like, the scenery and everything, so it's
Yeah.
fun. But no, I love that movie, so
And well, this isn't one of the questions, but it's just my question now that I know that Real Housewives is one of your favorites. That's one of my favorite. I don't think people realize how big of a reality show person I am and like how I've watched the Real Housewives since they first came out, like the Orange
Mhm.
County ones first
Yep.
came like so OGs of Beverly Hills, like
Beverly
reality
Hill
TV. That's my thing. What is your favorite franchise of the Real Housewives?
I really like Beverly Hills and New York. Those are my favorites, yeah.
The original New York or the new New York? 'Cause
I
I think
actually
they
really like
switched up.
the new one is really good. I like
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
I haven't started watching that one yet.
Yeah.
I started watching the Rhode Island one, so I thought that was
Oh, I started watching, like, the first episode, and I didn't even get to finish it because
yeah.
I ended up going back to Beverly Hills because I thought, "Well, if I have a few
Yes,
minutes, I'm gonna finish up Beverly Hills, and then I'll
I
get
know
to the
the
Rhode Island."
I think the reunions and everything I think are over with Beverly Hills, so now it's like, okay, we're gonna switch over to, like, the New York, the ones that we haven't been watching.
Yeah,
Um, okay, totally sidetracked on that because I can totally go into
me
Real
too.
Housewives. I can
Yep,
totally go into and it's funny because 'cause I've been watching it through a lens now of, like, my outs like, the healing going through the journey. So,
yeah,
like, the whole Dorit and Erica and Kyle thing, like, the
yes,
mental health aspect in it, I'm, like, just watching through a different lens when I watch the reality shows. It's kinda like,
yeah,
so that could be a whole 'nother episode. Maybe
yeah.
when everything's all settled and you've got your bench, or maybe we just have a Real Housewives episode where we just kind of go into it. I'd be
Yes, I
totally
mean,
down
there's
for
so
that.
much to talk about with so much to unpack with Beverly Hills.
They're right. And let's see. Let me just the final one is well, hold on. I'm gonna ask you two more. Coffee, matcha, or tea?
Coffee. Coffee, but also matcha. Matcha is good, but
Okay.
mostly coffee, yeah.
Mostly coffee. I
Yes.
figure everybody needs that
I
caffeine fix.
yeah.
And the final question is just one word that you want voters to associate with your name.
Balance. I think balance is something. Balance
Wow.
or experience, whichever one you want.
That was a good one. Balance. I love that. Scales of justice, y'all.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. But yeah, I just again, just thank you so much for coming on and having the conversation with me just to get the information out to the voters about who you are. And Francis, how can people reach you if they want to have a conversation? How can they reach out to you and find out a little bit more about you?
So I am canvassing specific areas and it changes daily or, weekly, but the best way is through my website, electmaldonado.com. If you go to my website, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, our email is there. It's the campaign email and it's a phone number that I have set up for our campaign. So I have had people reach out through that number and it's a Google voice number that I subscribe to. So I get the calls, I respond to them. Emails, I respond to them as well. So those are ways to do that. So email me, call the or text the Google voice number and reach out.
Do you see, y'all? no excuses to say, well, I didn't know this. The candidate wouldn't reach out to me. Like, you have direct access to a candidate who is running for a bench in an important court, and you need to take advantage of that. And not advantage of like asking legal advice or things like that. Like, take advantage of finding out what her platform is and what she's running on. Take advantage of that. So that's elect Maldonado.
Yes. And then I also have Facebook, Frances Maldonado for County Portal Law number 2. So I have that Facebook account too. But I think the best way to reach me directly is through, check out my website, get the contact information. And I'm always happy to talk to voters, answer questions, and just get to know people.
I love that. So yeah, so thank you. Thank you so much for coming on today, and you know, I'll not leave it here because I still have more to close the show with. But I will say, just for people watching, people listening, when you're looking at candidates specifically for this court, CC court number 2, look at the candidates, look at one, the experience, two, who is out speaking to the voters, giving you direct access, a phone line that you can connect with, giving you their platform on a website. That matters because that's transparency, that's communication, that's showing you that somebody is really wanting to help the community be its best. And judges in these seats in these local elections are so very important to us, and we don't realize it. So when you're looking at candidates, make sure that you see who is the most transparent, who you have can find more information on, because that shows their platform, that gives you an insight to who they are and what they stand for. And when you are looking and you don't see other candidates having any information, giving you any access, they just might have bigger signs on bigger streets or whatever it is, don't let that fool you. Don't let that skew you, because people think that you're dumb and that you're lazy and that you're not going to do that work. And so they just spend the money to get these big billboards, and it doesn't mean that they're the best candidate for what we're looking for. And so I highly encourage you to visit electmaldonado.com to see the information there for Frances, and again, to just get the information, make your own choice, but look for those things because it is very important. Voting information, our early voting starts here in El Paso
Monday.
Monday, May 18th.
Yes.
For this specific election, I believe you can vote at any location. It doesn't have to be in your precinct. So if you work on the west side and you're near one of the polling stations, you can just get off of work and go vote there, or you can go vote before. You can visit epcountyvotes.com for your location. You can also check to see if you're registered to vote for this election. One of the big things, which I highly encourage and I do every time, is you can actually print out a sample ballot of what you're going to specifically be voting for. You can print that sheet of paper out with the selections you make. And that way, when you go to the polls, you just take out your piece of paper and you follow the screen prompts. They're not always in order though, so make sure you're looking at the paper because they're not always in order, but that is something that you can do in the polls or when you're voting in the booths. You can take a sheet of paper. You cannot take your cell phone in there and be working off of your cell phone. You can print out a sheet of paper and be able to use that. So make sure that you take advantage of that as well. So sample ballots, checking registration for to see if you're able to vote is going to be epcountyvotes.com for all of your voting information. Early voting is May 18th till May 22nd. So please, y'all, get your votes out early. And then the last election day is May 26th, Tuesday. So if you don't get a chance to early vote, make sure that you head out to the polls on May 26th. So
And
there
keep
you
in
go. You
mind that
have,
Monday, the 25th, is Memorial Day. If people are planning on going out of town, then try to get out to vote early,
yeah.
knock it out.
When you go to the epcountyvotes.com, you put in your address because people might think like, well, how am I going to know what I'm voting on? You put in your address, your date of birth, and if you're registered to vote, it'll pop up. There's a section there that says sample ballot, and that's how you'll know who to to vote for. So you can go check that out right now so you can see who even is going to be on your ballot and go from there. But it's very important, y'all, especially here locally in El Paso, Texas, that we get these votes in. We need to stop letting 3% of our, I think it's, hold on, I'm going to look this up real quick. Total registered voters is crazy here. I don't know, hold on. Registered voters as of Friday, May 15th, 2020. Is that today? Yes.
Yes.
We have 527,918 registered voters, y'all. That's a shit ton of registered voters.
Voters.
We should be making waves with these registered voters. So, if you're registered to vote, if you don't know if you're registered to vote, epcountyvotes.com, go out and hit the polls. That sounds a lot different now. I remember one time, this is a random thought, but when we were, I was working for the elections, when Obama was running for president the
Oh,
first time.
nice. Yes.
Yeah, and then we'd be like, oh, I was like in my 20s at that point, maybe. But it was like we'd be out partying or whatever, and then we'd have to go work the polls for.
I get it
I
now.
had a whole different meaning back then. We're like, yeah, we're gonna go work the polls. That's such a nerd way, right? But
That's
like,
funny.
or
Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, so make sure everybody totally random, but make sure everybody that you go out and vote. Remember, awareness is important and it matters, but action is the only thing that is going to make things change. Local elections shape our communities in real ways. Staying informed is the most powerful thing that we can do along with voting. A very big thank you to Frances Maldonado for joining me today and having a conversation with us. Make sure, y'all, you keep on talking about the hard things so you can start enjoying the good things, but also take that action. Thank you so much, Frances, for coming on. I appreciate you, and hope to see you again soon as a judge on
Thank
a
you.
Real Housewives episode.
Episode. Yes. Thank you so much for your time and for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, I'm happy to have you. So thank y'all. Make sure that you tune in every week. We have a new episode. I've been going live more for resources on mental health. You can visit talkingaboutit.com. If you are in crisis or know somebody who is struggling with their mental health, you can dial 988, the crisis hotline. You can text them, you can call them. If you absolutely have no idea where to go, you can always DM me at Talking About It and I can guide you to the resources that we have available anywhere throughout the United States. So talk to y'all later and see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.